The obstetrician adopted the homeless patient's twins, and 30 years later, they met again. "I can't take them," the young mother whispered, barely getting the words out. Her desperate eyes clung to the doctor who had just delivered her babies. Samantha's blue eyes, dull like a faded sky, were brimming with tears. Gasping from the pain in her soul, she repeated, "I can't raise them. I just can't." "Don't rush into a decision, sweetheart," Dr. Andrew Harris replied gently, though there was a note of concern in his voice. "The delivery went well, your boys are beautiful, healthy, strong. Give yourself time to rest. Then you can decide what to do." Dr. Harris's heart sank as he noticed the emptiness in the young woman's eyes. Her indifference to the newborns, 2 tiny lives born right on time, was like a dagger to his soul. Samantha had arrived at the hospital with nothing, no ID, no medical records. Someone had found her collapsed on a cold bench near a shopping center, dressed only in a thin autumn jacket that did little against the biting wind. Unable to hide his concern, Dr. Harris asked, "How did you end up there like that? Why were you dressed so lightly?" Samantha shot him a grim, almost hostile look. "Why do you care? What's the point of all these questions? No one ever helps. They just ask and ask, then turn their backs like I don't even exist." Her voice broke off, and she fell silent, staring blankly at the ceiling as if the last flicker of hope had died in her eyes. The women in the maternity ward watched quietly, sighing. Their eyes were full of pity. No one ever came to visit Samantha, and her loneliness hung heavy in the room. A day before her discharge, the young mother came to the doctor's office and said, "I need to talk to you." Her pleading gaze made the doctor set aside the patient charts he was updating. The nurse had taken half the day off for family matters, so Dr. Harris was stuck doing his least favorite task alone. "Samantha, what's wrong?" he asked. "I already told you, I can't take the babies. I have nowhere to go. They'll throw me out." Her shoulders slumped, her voice quiet. "And don't start telling me I should have thought about this earlier. I did. That's why I kept the pregnancy. But how could I know that bastard would kick me out a week before my due date, leaving me on the street?" "What happened?" Dr. Harris asked carefully. She shrugged. "Nothing special. The same old story. I came here to get on my feet, to avoid being a burden to my parents. Then I met Brandon. He followed me around like a puppy, until he got what he wanted. And I was stupid enough to believe him. As it turned out, Brandon came from a very wealthy family and lived like a spoiled playboy, parties, fun, no responsibilities. His fling with Samantha had actually shaken him up a bit. He liked her, her looks, her fire, she had really gotten under his skin. He thought it might be something serious. That is, until Layla came into his life. The exotic beauty swept him off his feet, and he conveniently forgot the promises he had made to Samantha not long ago. Realizing she might lose him, Samantha tried to hold on by telling him she was pregnant. At first, Brandon pretended to be happy about becoming a father, but it wasn't long before the truth came out. He had no interest in being tied down so young. "Here's some money. Go get an abortion," he said, placing an envelope on the table. Samantha grabbed it and threw it in his face. "I'm 6 months along. What kind of abortion are you talking about? Are you insane?" she shouted. Her face twisted like a little girl's on the verge of tears, and she began sobbing. But her tears didn't move him. All he could think about was Layla, especially what she looked like without clothes. "So, at that stage, it's too late?" he asked absent-mindedly. "Are you joking?" Samantha screamed. Brandon continued paying for the apartment where he used to meet Samantha, but as soon as the lease came up for renewal, he vanished. He stopped answering calls and blocked her everywhere he could. Samantha tried to find him through mutual friends, but Brandon had disappeared like he never existed. "The landlady told me to leave the apartment if I couldn't pay. I didn't have the money, so I ended up on the street." Slept in bus stations, ate whatever I could find, and now I'm here, doctor. I'm not trying to justify myself. We're both adults. I made a decision, I'm not keeping the babies. There's no way I can raise them alone. I thought Brandon would help, that he'd be happy, but I was wrong. This is the harsh reality. I'll sign the papers. They'll be better off in an orphanage than with me. That's your final word? Dr. Harris finally saw her for who she really was. How many desperate mothers like her had he seen over the years? But why should innocent children pay the price for being treated as pawns in someone else's crisis? She didn't even stop to think, she just gave them up like that. What would happen to those babies later didn't seem to matter to her at all. She believed someone else would do a better job raising them. Fine. Here's the form. Sign it, the doctor said coldly, without a trace of sympathy. He already knew Samantha wasn't going to change her mind. Here, she said with a strange bravado, handing him the paper. Write down an address, just in case Child Services needs to reach you, he pointed to the corner of the page. Oh please, like that would make a difference, Samantha rolled her eyes, but still jotted something down. She could have written a fake address, that happened often too. After Samantha was discharged, Dr. Harris headed toward the newborns. His footsteps echoed down the hallway, and his heart thudded as if it knew this would be more than a routine checkup. He stopped at the bassinets where the two boys were sleeping peacefully, strong and healthy, like little angels, unaware of the cruelty of the world they'd been born into. Dr. Harris leaned in to look at their tiny faces, soft cheeks, the faint flutter of their lashes. Suddenly, one of the boys turned his head and opened his eyes. His gaze, clear, calm, serious, struck the doctor like lightning. For a split second, Harris saw his own daughter, Mia, in those eyes. The same deep, trusting look, silently asking, "Can I trust you?" His breath caught in his throat. His chest tightened, and his eyes began to sting with unexpected tears. He turned away quickly, afraid someone might see his vulnerability. But Mia's face, their little girl who died from illness, had already come alive in his memory, tearing open old wounds. He and Svetlana had dreamed of a house full of children's laughter and the patter of little feet after their wedding. But fate had other plans. After the illness that took Mia, Svetlana had never fully recovered. Then the doctors delivered the final blow. Her body, weakened by grief and complications from childbirth, would never be able to carry another baby. Dr. Harris, hiding his own pain, tried to be strong for his wife. But every night, when they came home, they sat in silence, the emptiness between them louder than any words. They still longed for children, dreamed of them, but the dream felt out of reach, like a star in the daytime sky. And now, looking at these two little boys, something flickered in his heart, a fragile but undeniable spark of hope. He rushed back to his office, shut the door behind him, and with trembling hands, dialed the number. "Sweetheart, are you asleep?" His voice was barely audible. On the other end, Svetlana immediately sensed something had changed. "No, I'm awake." "What's going on?" Her voice quivered with emotion. "We have two abandoned babies here. Boys. Healthy, strong, calm. Svet, I was thinking, maybe we could take them. Bring them home." The words came out slowly, but they carried years of pain, longing, and quiet hope. There was silence on the other end. Svetlana knew how hard it was for her husband to talk about children after losing Mia. They had avoided that subject for so long, no talks of the future, no dreams. She had filled the void with work, embroidery, reading, but every night before falling asleep, she imagined holding Mia again, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. And now her husband's trembling voice had reopened her heart. "Are you serious?" she whispered, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face, not just of sorrow, but of hope. "Yes, sweetheart. I mean it," Dr. Harris replied, his own eyes now wet. "I want to see them." "Right now," Svetlana said firmly, with a strength in her voice he hadn't heard in a long time. Before he could say another word, she dropped everything, called a cab, and rushed to the hospital. When she walked into his office, she froze for a second, seeing his tired but glowing face. At that moment, Dr. Harris had just finished a flawless C-section, still a bit breathless but pleased. Seeing Svetlana there, he was briefly stunned. "Show me the boys. Please." Her voice was soft, but filled with a determination she hadn't shown in years. Dr. Harris realized there was no turning back. He led his wife to the neonatal ward, where the two babies slept under the dim glow of the overhead lights. Svetlana stopped at their cribs. Her hands trembled as her eyes soaked in every little detail, tiny fists, soft tufts of hair, the quiet sound of their breathing. One of the boys smacked his lips and wrinkled his nose in protest. He was hungry. Svetlana couldn't help but smile, and the walls around her heart, built from years of grief, finally began to melt. "I've waited so long to hear you say that," she whispered, her voice quivering with joy. They went through with the adoption. Each form, each signature, was a promise, to give those boys a home, a family, a lifetime of love. When Child Services went to the address Samantha had listed, they found only strangers. "We don't know any Samantha," grumbled an old man from the window of his rusty Ford. Samantha had vanished like a ghost, leaving behind nothing but two babies, now the very heart and new beginning for Andrew and Svetlana. Paul and Arthur grew up to be strong, upright young men who valued decency, kindness, and responsibility above all else. Svetlana often teased her husband, always swamped with work. "You missed out on so much, especially all the moments I got to be proud of them." And there was plenty to be proud of. Though the boys weren't perfect, they stayed out of trouble and earned respect among their peers. The older brother, Paul, joined the police force, sharp, observant, analytical. Arthur had a gentler nature and chose medicine, much to his adoptive father's quiet delight. "Well, finally someone's following in my footsteps. Guess we're a dynasty now." Arthur chose to specialize in surgery, and after graduating, began working at the same hospital as Dr. Harris. Colleagues admired the young doctor for his skill and his warmth, which came through in everything he did. Even the most difficult patients felt at ease around Arthur and requested him personally. One day, while Arthur was on shift, Kate, a nurse from the ER, walked into the staff lounge. She'd been flirting with him for a while, but Arthur saw her only as a colleague and friend. Standing in the doorway, she put on an innocent look. "Hey. What are you up to?" she asked as Arthur finished typing up a patient's post-op notes. "Same old paperwork," he smiled. "What's up with you?" "They just brought in some lady, looks to be around 50. Smells like a liquor store. Totally wasted. Screaming at everyone, demanding care. Where's Thompson?" "He's supposed to be on duty down there," Arthur asked. Thompson took one look at her and vanished, Kate grimaced. "So the chief sent me to get you. Says you're our miracle worker. Thinks you can calm her down." "Let's go," Arthur said, standing and adjusting his coat before heading out. Kate hurried to keep up with his brisk pace. In the ER, a disheveled woman sat slumped in a chair, reeking of cheap alcohol. She gripped the armrests like they were her only anchor. Mike, the orderly, had helped her into the chair, and then made a quick exit. The woman looked up at Arthur with glassy eyes and hiccuped loudly. "May I?" Arthur said, not waiting for a response as he gently tilted her chin up, checked her pupils with a light, and examined her head and upper torso for visible injuries. She quieted and gasped as he lifted her right arm. "Where does it hurt?" She motioned toward her shoulder with her eyes. Arthur carefully removed her dirty sweater and took a look. Her shoulder was slightly swollen. "Kate, get her to X-ray, just in case there's a fracture or a dislocation." "Anything else bothering you?" he asked the woman. She shook her head. "No, just the arm. But it hurts like hell, you hear me," she whined, her voice rising in a panicked pitch. When the scans came back, Arthur let out a breath of relief. No fracture. Bones are intact. Just a sprain and some soft tissue bruising. There's a dislocation too, but it's an easy fix. The woman let out a shrill scream as Arthur set her shoulder. After securing the joint, he gave her some painkillers and asked, "Can I get your information? Where do you live?" "None of your damn business," she snapped, pulling the sweater back over herself with a sour grin. She pushed away the pill he offered and snorted dismissively. "Doctor, why do you even care who I am or where I live? No one's going to help me anyway. Still, I guess I should say thank you. What happened? How did you dislocate your shoulder and get those bruises?" Arthur was used to pretending that patients' attitudes didn't get to him. "What do you think happened?" the woman laughed. "I fell. Bad luck, slipped on the stairs, that's it, end of story." After she left, Kate explained. "Some guys dropped her off in their car. She was barely conscious. Turned out, she'd been begging outside a supermarket. The police had chased her off several times, but she kept coming back. Every time she left, she'd take another swig from her bottle. Eventually, she just collapsed, couldn't stay on her feet anymore." "Damn," Arthur shook his head. "Let's hope we don't see her again. Still, even people like her deserve medical care." Dr. Harris froze when a disheveled woman approached him near the hospital entrance. Her face seemed oddly familiar. "Hey there, Doc," she said casually, slapping him on the shoulder. "Do I know you?" Dr. Harris asked, confused. "Of course you do," she nodded, even giving a theatrical little bow. "You know me a lot more intimately than just my face. Please don't waste my time, ma'am." "I can call security," he replied impatiently, glancing around. "Oh, come on, security," she scoffed, leaning in close to his face. Then she whispered. "Who took my boys, huh? Was it you? Do they even know you're not their real father?" Dr. Harris went cold. He recognized her. It was Samantha, changed beyond recognition over 30 years, and not for the better. She acted like a street drunk, her vocabulary just as rough. "You're thinking about your kids after all these years? Where were you before?" the doctor asked sharply. She didn't flinch. "Yeah, I remembered." "So what?" she said defiantly. "It was a youthful mistake. And you, instead of talking me out of it, reminding me I was a mother, you took advantage of how young and clueless I was. If I'd known where this would all lead," she rolled her eyes dramatically. "I've seen this show before," Dr. Harris replied calmly. "You even gave us a fake address when you signed the papers. You disappeared. And now you expect me to believe some touching story about your maternal instincts? You literally said you had those kids to trap some rich boy." "Oh, what a memory, doctor," the woman sneered. She looked at him with a sharp, cynical stare that revealed exactly how far she'd fallen. "Can I be honest with you? We're not strangers after all." Dr. Harris braced himself. Clearly, she was here with a plan. But what was she getting at? "My Brandon came back," Samantha announced triumphantly. "He wants to meet his sons now. He has no heirs. And guess what, I gave him two. He was my first, my only, so he's sure they're his." "Well, good for you. But what does that have to do with us?" Dr. Harris asked. "Oh, right, I forgot the best part," she said eagerly. "If I bring Brandon his sons and he confirms they're his, he'll pay me a huge sum. I'll be set for life." "I'm happy for you," the doctor said coldly, stepping around her. But Samantha grabbed his arm with a grip like iron. "No, doctor, you don't get it. You're the one who has to bring them to me. Tell them why I had to leave them. Make up something heartbreaking, something that'll bring tears to their eyes. Then I'll take them to Brandon, and get my well-earned reward for being their mother." And if I don't? If you don't, I'll ruin your happy little life. I'll tell your boys you stole them from me. She turned and walked away, calling over her shoulder. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. I'll be waiting for you at the church. Svetlana loved her husband for many things, but most of all for his ability to make tough decisions quickly, especially the unpleasant ones. That evening, he came home, washed his hands, ate dinner, then joined his wife and told her about his encounter with Samantha. Svetlana covered her mouth in shock. Oh God, where did she even come from? It's been 30 years. I don't know, and I don't want to. But I have to protect the boys. She'll ruin their lives. Dr. Harris began pacing the room, something he only did when he was deeply troubled. I have to tell the boys the truth. They're grown men. They know how we really feel about them. There shouldn't be any secrets between us. When Paul and Arthur came home one by one, they immediately noticed the tension in the house. Mom, what's going on with you two? You playing secret agents or something? Paul joked, eyeing his unusually quiet parents. I should have told you long ago, Dr. Harris began, his voice strained. It's about your biological parents. Svetlana could barely speak. But to the couple's surprise, the young men exchanged a knowing glance and calmly smiled. It doesn't matter. We already know, Arthur said, stunning Dr. Harris. How? The doctor asked in disbelief. I found out by accident, Paul explained. I was working a case involving a child taken from an orphanage by his birth parents. I stumbled on some adoption files, ours. And? Svetlana's voice trembled. Nothing. If our mother gave us up at birth, left a fake address so she wouldn't be found, then clearly she didn't want to see us again. You're our real parents. No one else. Even if you tried to deny it. Paul turned to his brother. Right, Arthur? Exactly. You raised us. You gave us an education, a life. There are no other parents for us, Arthur confirmed. It was as if a massive weight lifted off the couple's shoulders. Dr. Harris couldn't hold back tears as he hugged his sons. Your biological mother showed up. She wants to introduce you to your father. She shouldn't bother, Paul snapped. Where's she been all these years? She wants to meet us. Fine. Let's go. All of us. If she's missed us so much, Arthur said dryly. That evening, while Dr. Harris, Paul, and Arthur waited at the designated meeting spot, Samantha was loudly arguing with someone on the phone. You said you wanted to meet them. What do you mean you have to see them for yourself? Then come here and talk to them yourself. And don't expect me to tell you their last names if you don't show up, got it? 10 minutes late, Samantha finally arrived at the church. She immediately recognized Dr. Harris, and the two young men beside him must have been her sons. She hurried over, smoothing down her greasy, unwashed hair. My boys, she called out joyfully, reaching toward them, but Paul's cold stare made her stop in her tracks. Hi, Arthur, she nodded, trying to sound motherly. So this is who you've become, huh? Thank you for helping me back at the hospital. You know her? Paul asked his brother, who quickly explained. Well, ma'am, Paul said sharply, you may be our biological mother, but we have no interest in acknowledging you. You're nothing to us, and we know exactly why you're pretending to care all of a sudden. Too bad you never figured it out. We're not bargaining chips in your messed up life, and we never will be. Everyone was stunned, Arthur included, by Paul's bluntness. No one expected him to speak so harshly. Samantha suddenly dropped to her knees and began wailing, rocking back and forth. My boys. Forgive me, I was such a fool. I was too young, I didn't know how much I'd miss you. Please don't reject me. I'm all alone in this world. How can you turn away your own mother? Paul and Arthur felt sick. This was Samantha in a nutshell, asking for forgiveness with one breath and guilt-tripping them with the next. "Spare us the drama, ma'am," Paul said coldly. "I know the full story, how we were born, how you abandoned us. Go find someone else to play your games with. And leave our family alone." The men turned and walked away. Samantha remained on her knees, staring after them with a blank, empty gaze. Once again, she was alone, and after this, no one would want anything to do with her. That evening, the Harris household was filled with warmth and quiet comfort. At dinner, with steaming bowls of soup on the table, Paul and Arthur kept exchanging glances, trying not to burst into laughter as they recalled the scene outside the church. "Did you see her face when she dropped to her knees?" Paul snorted, scooping up a spoonful of potatoes. "One-woman drama show." Arthur nearly choked laughing. "And the way she wailed about her boys, like we were actually her family or something." Svetlana shook her head, though the corners of her lips twitched with a smile. Dr. Harris only sighed, grateful his sons hadn't fallen for Samantha's manipulations. Meanwhile, Samantha kept wandering the streets. The city's chill cut through to the bone, and her thin, tattered jacket did nothing to protect her from the wind. She sat near a supermarket, reaching out a trembling hand to passers-by, most of whom sped up and looked away. Her life had become a cycle: beg for change, buy cheap alcohol to numb the pain, then collapse again on the cold pavement. No one knew her story. And no one cared about the woman with the vacant stare. One damp autumn day, Paul and Arthur passed by that very supermarket. They spotted a familiar figure hunched over on a piece of cardboard, mumbling incoherently. The brothers exchanged a glance. Paul pulled some coins from his pocket and dropped them into the crumpled cup in front of her. The coins clinked. Samantha flinched and looked up. Recognizing them, she sprang to her feet, her face twisting with shame and desperation. "My boys, forgive me. This foolish, sinful woman." Her voice trembled. She reached toward them, but froze when she met their cold stares. "I didn't mean to abandon you, I was young and stupid, please, I'm begging you." Paul crossed his arms. His face was unreadable. "We don't hate you, Samantha. But you're nothing to us. And you never were," he said, his voice like steel. Arthur stood beside him, his eyes holding a flicker of sympathy, but his voice remained steady. "You made your choice, back at the church. Live with it. We built our lives without you. If you ever decide to change, here's the address of a clinic." He pulled out a piece of paper with a neatly written address. "They'll help you for free. But they don't take drunks. Keep that in mind." His words, though gentler than Paul's, still stung, reminding her of the chains of addiction that bound her life. The brothers turned and walked away, their footsteps echoing through the chilly air. Samantha dropped to her knees on the wet pavement, watching them until their silhouettes disappeared into the crowd. Tears streamed down her cheeks, burning hot trails across her skin. But inside, she felt nothing, just a gaping void, as if her heart had long since turned to ash. She clutched the piece of paper Arthur had tossed her. That slip of paper was a bridge to another life, but it terrified her. Her mind spun with thoughts. "Change, start over," she whispered, but fear wrapped around her like chains. She knew she had to try, that this might be her last chance to crawl out of the pit she'd been falling into for years. But how? Addiction still had its claws in her. The bottle hidden in her coat whispered promises of numbness, even if temporary. "What if I can't? What if I show up and they see what I really am?" she thought, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the paper. "They'll turn away, just like everyone else. I won't survive that." She was terrified, of being judged, of being sober, of facing herself. But somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark remained. What if? What if I can? For them. For me. Samantha looked up at the sky, but the gray clouds gave no answers. She knew this was it, her last chance. If she couldn't summon the strength to walk to that address, her life would vanish completely into the cold and loneliness of the streets. But fear and addiction were stronger than that fragile hope. She clenched the paper in her fist, as if trying to hold on to that last sliver of possibility, and sobbed harder, knowing she might never find the courage to take that step. But she would try. 5 days. 5 long, excruciating days she went without touching vodka, though her hands trembled and her mind screamed for relief. Each day was a war. She hid her face from strangers, afraid of their judgment, whispering to herself, "Just a little longer, Samantha. Hang on." The fear of sobriety was greater than the cold, but somewhere deep down, hope flickered, that maybe she could change, that not all was lost. On the 5th day, gathering the last of her strength, Samantha rose from the bench at the bus station where she had spent so many nights and began the walk to the address. The clinic turned out to be small but clean, its white walls smelling of medicine and hope. She froze at the entrance, her heart pounding as if it were about to leap from her chest. "What if they see who I really am? What if they send me away?" whispered the voice in her head. But her legs kept moving forward on their own. She stepped inside, still gripping the crumpled piece of paper like a talisman. The nurse at the front desk gave her a tired but kind look, listened patiently to her confused, stumbling explanation, and without asking unnecessary questions, directed her to a doctor. He was an older man with gentle eyes. He listened to Samantha quietly, without interrupting. Her voice trembled as she spoke of the years on the street, the bottle that became her only comfort, and the sons she had lost through her own choices. "I want to try," she whispered. "I don't want to live like this anymore." The doctor nodded. His eyes held no judgment, only understanding. He prescribed medication to ease her withdrawal symptoms and referred her to an Alcoholics Anonymous group. "This is just the beginning, Samantha," he said. "But you've already taken the first step. That means a lot." At her first AA meeting, Samantha sat hunched in the corner, afraid to raise her eyes. The room was filled with people whose faces carried traces of similar battles, fatigue, pain, but also hope. When her turn came to speak, she froze, her throat tightening as if clutched by an invisible hand. All eyes turned toward her, not with scorn, but with quiet patience. Samantha stood. Her hands trembled, and her voice was barely audible. "My name is Samantha. And I'm an alcoholic." Those words, so simple, yet so heavy, tore from her like a cry from the depths. She began talking about the sons she had abandoned, the love that had turned into betrayal, the years lost in the bottom of a bottle. Tears flowed freely, like a dam had burst. She couldn't stop them. "I lost them, my boys. I wanted to be their mother, but I couldn't. I ruined everything." Her voice cracked as her tears hit the floor. No one interrupted. A woman sitting beside her placed a hand gently on her shoulder. That small gesture felt like a lifeline to Samantha. Her name was Nancy, around 50, with deep wrinkles but bright eyes that sparkled with life, something Samantha hadn't seen in her own reflection for years. Nancy listened as if Samantha's words were the only thing in the world that mattered. When the meeting ended and people began to leave, Nancy handed Samantha a cup of tea without a word. "I was where you are now," she said softly, her voice calm but firm, like someone who had been through a storm and learned to stand again. 20 years ago, I left my daughter. Thought she'd be better off without me. Just like you, I drowned my pain in a bottle. But 6 months ago, I came to this hospital and started over." Samantha, trembling with tears, looked up at her. You made it." Her voice was hoarse, caught between doubt and fragile hope. Nancy smiled, though there was pain behind it. "Not right away. And I'm still not done. But I haven't had a drink in 6 months. And you know what? My daughter, Kate, she comes to see me sometimes. She hasn't forgiven me completely, but she comes. Once a month, sometimes less. Brings me cookies, tells me about her life. It's not much, but to me, it's everything. It means there's still a chance. Even for people like us. Samantha clutched the cup so tightly the tea burned her fingers, but she didn't notice. Nancy's words were like a beam of light in her darkness. She imagined her boys, Paul and Arthur, their cold stares outside the church, their words, "You're nothing to us." But now, hearing Nancy, she thought, what if? What if one day they come, not to forgive, maybe, but just to talk? The thought scared her. She knew how much damage she'd done. But it also lit a tiny flame in her chest, small, but alive. The hospital became her refuge. The doctors and nurses didn't look at her with disgust, as she'd feared. She was given treatment, shots and pills to help with the cravings, therapy sessions with a psychologist who listened patiently as she shared pieces of her broken past. But what mattered most were her meetings with Nancy. They would sit in the hospital hallway, sipping tea, talking about their mistakes, their pain, and how terrifying it was to start over. Nancy once told her how Kate had brought her an old photo, just the two of them, taken before alcohol had destroyed everything. "I looked at that photo and cried," Nancy admitted. "But they were good tears. They reminded me why I'm fighting." Samantha didn't know if she'd ever get to that point. She was afraid she'd relapse, that the bottle would call her back. But every time the urge became unbearable, she remembered Nancy. She remembered her boys. She remembered the piece of paper she still carried in her pocket,